All right, so I just ask everybody to put their microphones on mute, please. For those who don't know Cherian, and that I know, Emily, you don't know Cherian at all whatsoever. Never met the guy. Cherian is one of the capital THE top fundraising experts in the sector. He knows a lot more than just fundraising, but when it comes to fundraising, he is one of my top three go-to people when I have questions. One of the people I rely on. That's because of the depth of his knowledge, his experience, his expertise, his smarts. And you're going to learn and see some of that in what he's going to demonstrate for you today. What I've asked Cherian to do is to introduce you to the platform that he's founded and created called NonprofitOS. He's going to talk to you a little bit about, give you a little bit of introduction to the field of using AI, copywriting, and all of that. And then he's going to show you how his platform works. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Cherian and let him go.
I appreciate it, sir. While we're doing that, if you don't mind, I mean, everyone besides Emily, if you don't mind putting in the chat the organization that you work for or with, or an example of a client if you're a consultant, and also kind of what are the pain points that you might have. I would love to use as many examples as possible in this process, and we'll use live examples as much as possible when we get to the platform. But before we do that, I wanted to talk with you about not only why I created it, but we're going to spend about 15-20 minutes purely on something unrelated to the platform. And by that, I mean, I want you to get a good solid amount of value, regardless of whether you use this particular tool for your organization or organizations that you work with. So I actually don't know. So for those of you who don't know me and or Emily, I spent 25 years doing fundraising work and continue to do that, particularly with small, mid-sized organizations. And by that, I mean, typically, my typical client is less than $1 million in revenue, some that are less than $100,000 in revenue. And I don't know that, and Emily and I work together at Des Moines Performing Arts, and this is where the story actually begins. So we were working in the Performing Arts Center, which was closed during COVID. I had watched all of the Netflix and I was like, I can't watch any more Netflix. This is not good. This is not a good use of my time. And we were meeting regularly trying to figure out, like, what do we do? How do we do it? And I started watching YouTube videos around no-code applications. And as AI was emerging, this is before ChatGPT and all of the other AI tools that are out there now. And I wanted to see, could this help us in the work that we're doing, but also could this help organizations that I'm working with in a way that would accelerate their efforts, make it easier for them. In particular, as many of you know, like we lost a lot of nonprofit employees during that time. So we're all faced with doing more work with fewer people. And those were the problems that I was trying to solve. The other piece was Emily kind of, when we were in the office, knocking on my door and being like, hey, where's that thank you note that we need to send out for this appeal? And I was like, shoot, okay, I'll get to it, right? So that's sort of the context around what we're going to talk about here today. And as I mentioned before, for the first few minutes, I want to kind of level set with you why this is important for your organization, why there are challenges that you sort of need to overcome. If you nap during the first 15 minutes here, or if you're watching the recording, you're like, I don't really care. Here's the TLDR, the skip through to the good part. AI is all around you. It's operating around you all the time in your everyday use. And the bottom line for you is you can either work with the algorithms that are shaping the online world, or you can ignore it and stick your head in the sand. There are lots of fads out there that are, maybe this is a good tool for nonprofits. There's the flash in the pan, and maybe we should be raising money on crypto. Maybe we should be trying to do things with online gaming or whatever. But here's the reality. Artificial intelligence effects how your website functions, how your emails get sorted, how social media functions. So everything that people see from your organization or from you individually has some element of artificial intelligence or machine learning that's put on it already. So that's where I want to level set with you. And then these 4 points are really what we're going to cover today. And then we'll get into the specifics of the platform. So one of the questions I get asked a lot is, how often do we post, should we post on social media? And if you take a look at Hootsuite, which is sort of the gurus of all the things social media, they're not going to give you a prescriptive model for, post once a day, 3 times a day, whatever it is. They may indicate some best practices, but here's what I want to share with you that's really important for your organization. I know lots of organizations that I work with that post only when they feel like they have news to share. We have an event coming up, we have a report that we want to share, there's something that's newsworthy, and those are the only times where information gets shared on social media. At the same time, they believe that social media is an opportunity that's free to reach out to their constituency to engage them. However, and here's the first kind of piece that you need to understand, if you are not posting consistently, whatever consistently means for you and for your organization, the social media platforms use artificial intelligence to determine how much of your content organically shows up in people's feeds. So if your Habitat for Humanity and you post once a month, on Facebook, for example, Facebook says they don't have a lot of content to share. So even though they have tens of thousands of people following their page, that doesn't show up in those people's feeds. And the proof of that is in how much content is being created every single day. So imagine your Facebook follower on your nonprofit's organization's page, or Twitter follower, or Instagram follower. They are being inundated with content, and all of these pieces of whether they're search engines or social media platforms or whatever are trying to curate that experience so they stay on that platform. So they want to make sure that the most interesting, relevant content gets lifted up to them, that content that they'll engage with. And so if you're not posting regularly, if you're not posting things that make a difference, if you're not updating your website, if you're not doing some of those things, then those algorithms that are already in play will say, they've got nothing to share. We're not going to put that up as high. We're not going to indicate that to or lift that up to these viewers. So that's a lot, right? That's a lot of content that is being created. It's a lot of important sort of takeaway for you. Again, regardless of what tool you use, or if you use any tool at all, this is why certain brands get elevated, certain brands get a lot of traction around their stuff, or you see them at the top of search results or something like that. So how do we deal with that? And this is from the Digital Marketing Institute, which indicates they prioritize content that they think a user will like based upon a number of factors. Now, each social media platform has a different algorithm. So what I'm going to talk with you about is not platform specific. What I want you to focus on is, at a high level, if we want to use social media or email or our website or any of these other things to engage with our constituencies, how do we make sure that they actually see that they engage with it, whether that means opening or clicking or whatever that looks like. One of the big challenges a year ago from Hootsuite as well is around organic reach. So you always have these board members who are like, social media is free, email is free, we should just use that. How many people are actually engaging with that content? It's a very small percentage of those people. And you see that, right? If you have 100 followers on Facebook, or even 1,000 or more, you know that not 100 people are engaging with it. And it's not because they don't like you. It's probably because they just didn't see it. So one way of thinking about that is, if you have 10,000 Facebook followers, I have one organization that I work with that has like 10 to 15,000 Facebook followers. They actually have higher performance than this, but the expectation, according to these algorithms, is around 7 engagements. So if you're not posting regularly, if you're not posting engaging content, that's what the math suggests. And the reason is because these platforms need to make money. So the first thing to remember is if you're only using one platform, you're going to get some portion of those people who are going to engage with your work, not all of them. So make sure that you're thinking about, do we post on other platforms? Do we kind of think about how do we modify content for those different platforms? But remember that social media is an ad platform. They want to, and if you've been on, I don't use Facebook personally very much at all, but I log on for the tool that I'm using, and what I see all the time is ad after ad after ad, because it's getting overwhelmed by that. I also see that on Twitter and to a lesser extent on LinkedIn, but those are the platforms that I play on. So as I said before, remember that artificial intelligence is already at play. So we're not trying to game the system, because they can always change the algorithm, change how that works, but we want to make sense of that and work with the system as much as possible. So how do you think about the challenge of creating content for your website, of creating content for social media, of keeping your donors informed, whether that's in an electronic media like an email, or even print pieces that you're working on? I mentioned before, the knock on the door. Hey, we sent out this appeal. We're going to get responses in. What's that thank you note? And me personally, I'm not a very good writer. It takes me a long time to get started. And so I look at this blank screen, and I'm like, oh, geez. And then there's all kinds of other things that you need to do. You're meeting with donors, you have internal meetings, and, Netflix and whatever else. So it becomes very difficult to create the content that you absolutely have to do, like the thank you note, the email appeal or letter appeal, and the thank you note that goes with it, or create enough content to be able to post something on your website, an update on your website, or something on social media. So those are some of the challenges. Maybe that resonates with you. Feel free to chime in the chat if any of those are true for you. So how do we actually create this content? Now, the obvious two principles that I talked about were making sure that that's consistent. If you are not regularly updating your website, what does Google think? It thinks that this is old, stale information, that people don't really need to know about it, and you fall in the rankings on your website. So for example, my personal website, created a while ago, got distracted by building this thing and didn't update it. And so I could see my ranking fall when people were searching for really obvious things like my name. And because of that, then I would hear people say, I checked out your website for a speaking engagement, didn't know if you were still doing it. And I'm like, oh, of course I am. Yeah, absolutely. So I learned that lesson the hard way. The other piece of this is really about intentionality. So what do we want our stakeholders, our community, to know about, to learn about, to act upon, to do? And if we're only putting out content that says, hey, show up to this event, join our golf tournament, go to our gala, give us money, then people don't necessarily know all the things that you do, why you do that, how it's making a difference, all of those things. And that's on any type of platform, whether it's print, electronic, social media, any of those things. So these two principles should guide your process moving forward. Throughout this year, think about how can we consistently share information with our stakeholders, and how can we be intentional about that process. So it's not just asking, it's not just inviting to events. There's also an awareness building and information building, sharing the stories of what it is that we do and how we do it. I'm not going to get into all of that piece, because there are way smarter people, of course, that have that knowledge and ability. So what I want you to think about is to encourage you. Part of this is really understanding and accepting the fact that as long as you are sharing stuff consistently, not crappy stuff, right? We don't want it to be bad and in a way that doesn't engage people. But if we're sharing stuff consistently, that is the core, right? Like that's the center of this work. And then altering it for platform is really what will be helpful moving forward, with optimizing for Twitter, or the difference between email and direct mail, or those types of things. So be mindful of the fact that if you're consistently communicating with your donors, your stakeholders, other community members, that's really the secret sauce, and then figuring out how to go from there. So how do we do that? How do we build that content? I'm going to give you a quick overview. I'm not going to share this video with you or play this video, sorry. This is my coach, Rory Vaden, talking about what I'll share with you on the next slide, but you'll get access to this deck and you'll be able to follow and watch the video yourself. It's like 3 or 4 minutes, and Rory has some really good content around why that works. I use a tool called Descript, which I would pay 10 times as much if they charge that much, but it allows me to go on my camera like I'm doing now to record the content and immediately get a transcript. So what Rory talks about is building one piece of content on video, taking the video assets and the text assets and running that through 2 different schemes. Do you need to do this? Absolutely not. It just enables you to take one piece of content and multiply it so that you're not creating new content for each platform and overwhelming yourself with lots of work to do. So I can take a 5-minute video, create text from that, and put that onto LinkedIn or Medium or somewhere else. I can take a picture of that video and attach it to a social media post. I can put the video on YouTube, on my own website. I can strip out the audio easily from this tool and create a podcast if I wanted to, and then clip quotes and put those onto Twitter or Facebook, and all of that can end up on my website. So that's one way of thinking about that. And so again, you don't need to do all of those things, but the idea is, let's say you have one piece of content, whether it's a video or a blog post or something like that. You can cut up that content 5 different ways and then have that content apply over the course of an entire week. And then as you develop that over the course of several weeks, now you can mix and match and play that out into different days so that it's not the same content across an entire week. And I'll show you kind of one of the ways in which we can do that in the platform as well. So I'm a big fan of thinking about it from this perspective: create a small set of content, breaking it apart, and then using it in multiple ways so that you are sharing overarching themes of what it is that you do. Now, this was specific to kind of an online social media approach, but this premise works as well for print stuff. So if you have a program area that let's say you have 4 or 5 program areas that you work in as your nonprofit. So once a quarter, you would want to produce something that is a mail piece that you send out to your constituency to talk about the program itself. Maybe you follow up with an email that's a summary of that program area. Maybe there's a video, a testimonial. You get the idea. Now we take that over our focus area for this quarter is this program area. How do we walk backwards into all of these different pieces that reinforce that content with our donors or our community or prospective donors, so that they can find out more information, get engaged, do the things that we want them to do with that, whether it's donate or volunteer or whatever it might be. I personally used that strategy numerous times before, where that overarching content area is then what we follow up with. Maybe a handful of emails. It might end up with an appeal. It might not. It might just be information and awareness building. But then you would also want to share social media content so that every time a prospective or existing donor is connecting with your brand in some way, they're seeing that similar kind of content. They're learning more about that program. The reality is they're not going to see everything, right? So they might quickly pick up that mail piece and get a sense of it. They might see the social media post, they might not. So you want this omni-channel approach is very easy when you have a way to build out that content, break it apart, and reshare it. So hopefully that's helpful from that perspective. So I want to get into the platform itself and how does the nonprofit operating system take these problems that we talked about and solve them super quickly and super fast. So if you're just waking up or if you're skipping ahead in the video, Ephraim's given me the opportunity to give you a promo code. So it's 1832 comms. If you go, and I'll show you where you can put that in, you'll get a free month of using this platform. Theoretically, you could get a lot done in a month, and I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second here. But earlier this week, I think, Ephraim shared with me a contact for someone in Canada. We did this exact same kind of demo, more on the platform itself, and later that day, she's the CEO. She sent this quote to me. She was in meetings when she emerged. Her fundraiser said, "We can't ever get rid of this. I don't know how to do my job anymore without this." I was like, that is an awesome testimonial. That's fantastic. If you send me a testimonial during your free month of using it, you'll get access to another month for 50% off. We'll talk about some of the other ways in which you can benefit from this, but I wanted to get into the platform itself. So let me go to the front page and I'll show you kind of how you log in and what you do with it. So I will, oopsies. So when you first get to the platform, you'll see this this part of the website, and you can click on Get Started, fill in your name, email, a password, click on that, and you'll get the option to either pick between the monthly or the annual. And on that screen is where you'll enter the 1832 comms promo code to make your first month free. If you decide you want to, after this demo, you're like, I love it, you can apply that promo code to the annual, and it will decrease that price by the monthly price if you want to do that. So when you confirm your account and all of that, you'll go into the text generation spot. So I'm going to start with the easiest version of this, if you, and then we'll get into more complicated scenarios. So the thing that I mentioned before is sort of this general fundraising appeal. So I'm going to go into the chat real quick and see what I see. James is a Children's Day preschool offering daycare for low-income families along with therapeutic and family services to our community. I am quite literally just going to copy that, James. I'm going to put, oopsies. I'm going to put Children's Day preschool. Oh, will it not let me? Son of a gun. Children's Day preschool in the top field, and then daycare for low-income families.
Cherian,
Yes.
can you do me a favor? Can you just read what's on top of the two fields there in case somebody can't see it on their screen?
Yep. So therapeutic. Yep. And family services for our community. So on the top is the overall concept. So Children's Day preschool is the overall concept. And then in this case, we're putting in what the funds would be used for, how does it solve the problem. The more specific you are, the better the response is going to be. But the idea here is that you would give the tool some idea of what you want. Now, unlike other templates that are out there, what you are going to get, James, as a result of this is not what some other preschool would get, or some other zoo, or some other, and what did we do here? What didn't you like? I don't know. It's not going to copy paste. So the templates that are out there are not, they're all going to be the same, right? So they're not going to be different based upon your scenario. You're sort of filling in the blanks. It's sort of this like Mad Libs kind of format for what you're doing. And so what this does is create something that is specific for you. As you notice, we had a little bit of an error there, and I'll look into why that might have happened. But ultimately, the difference between this platform and a lot of other platforms is that there's no limit on what you can do. So you can keep doing this 100 times if you don't like it, or if you run into an error, and you never have to worry about word limits or anything like that. So let's run this again. I'm going to copy this just in case I have to do that again. And so the idea here is that you can create an infinite number of fundraising appeals, none of which would ever look the same. And as you can imagine, this becomes really helpful. I don't know why that's happening. Oh, maybe it's that. it might not. Sometimes it doesn't like the oopsies, punctuation marks.
Cherian, did you use an Oxford comma? Because I told you don't use those.
I always use an Oxford comma.
I know that would explain why it's not, if you used it in this case, that explains why it's not loading so quickly.
Oxford commas rule.
They do.
Uh-oh, no, Emily, we can't be friends anymore. I'm sorry. I'm totally against it.
There we go. It was that apostrophe for some reason. So take a note that I'll work on that. But so would you ever start with dear value donor? Absolutely not. This is not designed to be a set it and forget it where you would automate this process. Hope this message finds you doing well. Ephraim hates that, right? But there's a critical need in our community. Children need access to daycare services, particularly for economically disadvantaged families who lack the resources to provide these services due to the current economic crisis. You get the idea. You can read that and you can, check it out. But this is a starting point for that fundraising appeal that would have taken me at least a few minutes to start writing that out. Now, if let's say I like that, but I don't really love, some pieces of it, I could take this paragraph, which I think I personally like, and I can just go back, fill that in there. And I can even, if this is your bag, write a donor-centered letter for, and I didn't like that reason for contacting you. So I'm just going to delete that and I'm going to hit generate response. As I said before, you can do this an infinite number of times and it will generate new copy every single time. So you can continue to revise the inputs if you want. What's different about this versus ChatGPT is that the fundraising appeal component requires you to have what's called prompt engineering. You would have to say, write a appeal for a letter that goes to donors and then continue to refine that prompt. And also ChatGPT might be more expensive. So this is much better. We're committed to help closing this gap. It's not as donor-centered as I'd like it to be, but it's still, now it's including a story, which is great. Alicia found herself in a difficult position. I wouldn't necessarily use a fake story. What I would think about is, can we now write this story based upon an actual daycare preschool person that actually works in or is actually a recipient of these daycare services. So you click on the pencil here, you can go in and edit it and save it. The other nice thing about this is this lives under this My Results tab. So you can see what you inputted, what your result was, and this is always here. So if you come back a year later and you wanted to modify this or do something else with it, you could. So those are all opportunities for you. We did get a large multinational organization who's now using the platform. So what we're launching soon is a Teams account. So you'll be able to share this with teammates. They'll be able to edit it. So you could take, someone could write the fundraising appeal and then someone could take this and copy it, which is what we're going to do now. Oopsies. Yep. To clipboard, I want to be able to do that. Thank you. To then the thank you note. And so this is a Children's Day preschool, and I'm gonna put this whole thing in. I don't think that's really a good idea. You would want to do something around, what do the funds actually do? So take your letter and pull out the pieces that are most relevant to, if you wanted to circle back on Alicia and the story, you could do that, especially if it's edited. But thank you for your generous gift in the name of blah, 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 to the daycare center, helping us make a significant difference in the lives of children in economically disadvantaged families. So this is, again, a really good starting point. You could hit run again if you don't love it, and it will create something new for you. With that large organization, that multinational organization, one of the things that they were concerned about was they had sent the exact same thank you note to the same donor 2 years in a row, and the donor called them out on it and said, hey, send me this exact same thing. So you'll see here, thank you for your kind gift to our daycare center. Appreciate your generous support. Donation helps ensure that these children receive safe, nurturing environment. Lovely. Alicia's story got pulled in this time. Financial difficulty leading to our center. So you could, again, edit this, run this out very quickly and easily for that purpose. So let's say, for example, we have this and the donor, so we write the thank you note. You could even take this and I've had clients who take this and then have like a board member or a CEO write the note based upon this script if you wanted to do that. And you can create multiple ones so that it's not the same letter every time. That might be more work for if you're handwriting it, but let's take, for example, then the year-end tax receipt, which maybe you're doing now. And so you can put in an amount here. So we'll do $100, but you don't have to. You could customize that, but it would take me, I don't know, a few minutes to write a tax receipt for sure, at least a few minutes for sure to write a tax receipt. If I could take the copy from the appeal or the thank you note and pop it in here and have this now as the template for what's used for multiple iterations of tax receipts that are sent to donors, that just makes it so much faster. This is a case where the template actually does need to kind of be in place because of organization name, address, EIN number. But, there's something here that I find helpful around making the tax receipt a little bit more personalized, a little bit more impact driven than just the tax receipt, even though it's something that's going to be just filed away. So those are some examples of the pieces there. I'm going to change the name of some of these drop downs and organize the drop downs a little bit better. But the blog ideas post, I'm going to use let's see, caring for creatures animal sanctuary. So I am going to use Mary's for this, and we're just gonna, oopsies, it doesn't like copy paste from Zoom. Caring for creatures animal sanctuary. Now feel free, Mary, in the chat to tell me if there's particular programs that you do. The reason why blog ideas is important for the organizations that use the platform is that it helps them think about what are some of the content areas that they could share with constituents, with stakeholders in the community around social media posts or on their website to update people on what's going on or share what's going on. So top tips for caring for rescued birds at a creature animal sanctuary. You might not deal with birds, in which case, we would do that differently. The importance of animal care and protection at a creature animal sanctuary. So that's one that's probably on board, right, Mary? Is that close? So if that's, I'm going to assume that that's closer. And what we're going to do is say, we want to share something on our website, or we want to write something to our constituency around, this topic. So we just put in the importance of animal care and protection at a creature animal sanctuary. And if there are keywords that you have, let's say it's caring for dogs and the importance of community volunteers. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up here.
Cherian, you can also
cats.
look, I know, Cherian, I was going to say, I know you can't copy and paste, but Mary added something in the chat.
Yep, I
You
just
can
saw
use for
it.
the next one.
So we'll run this again after it comes out with this thing. So the idea here is this, it says blog writing, but it's any long form content. So we have people who use it for newsletters. They type in a few keywords around what that newsletter content's going to be for email or for print. They'll use it for updating their website content, as I mentioned, lots of different uses. So having a pet, companion, love, blah, blah, blah. And so this one does specify dogs, but let's try. So this one's saved. Everything that you do is saved, but let's do ongoing care for cats and testing for feline leukemia. So if there are particular things that you do with that and whatnot, you get the idea. You would specify all of that, and it would be it will get more specific as you do that. The other piece of this is that it only learns from your content, from the things that you generate. So unlike ChatGPT or some of the other AI writers out there that would work for a nail salon or a pizza parlor or whatever, this is nonprofit specific content, and it's learning from nonprofit specific content. So I don't know if this is your policy, Mary, but provide cats with routine health, nutrition, and exercise checkups, make sure to administer regular vaccines, on-site behavioral counseling for cats, make sure they're in emotional well-being, comprehensive adoption. You can, oh, that's great. That is your policy. Awesome. Sometimes, and as particularly with like larger brands where there is web content, it will pull. It's kind of freaky, like when we do this with United Way or Red Cross or something like that, it'll pull specific stuff and they're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what we do. If you're a small nonprofit, it may not. I'm working on a way that it will pull stuff from your website or from other content that's in the works, but not right now. But so when you have several letters or posts created, what you can do is in my results, you can take this and then copy this, and you can either put it into a Google Doc or whatever platform you're using, or you can just you can take this stuff, copy it, and put it into the other one that you did. So, oops, this is in the way. So you can just add this to the bottom of that, and then you can say, ooh, I like this paragraph, but not that paragraph, and this other thing. So, and then when you save it, it will save that result. So you could write stuff that's really long. That's it's up to you on what to do in terms of length there. But you gotta think about whether that makes sense. So the other thing that we talked about a lot was social media. I'll go through a few of these other ones in a second, but for social media text, I'm not going to ignore my friend Emily because I've done this a bunch, but let's do. So one thing that's fun is that it will do, for some websites, it will do the website itself, which is not super useful for you. DMPA.org, right? Sorry. So you could actually literally just type in a website and it will write social media text. Ephraim gets upset with me when he looks at my YouTube videos because he's like, is it all arts organizations? So Emily, lots of these scenarios were based upon your actual use case. So if you go over to YouTube and see some of them, you'll see lots of different ones for, oh, I didn't hit respond. But I wouldn't necessarily just suggest using your website. I just wanted to show you that this is possible. What I would suggest is if you take, so looking for these are all, again, designed for kind of that giving component, but this is very specific to what DMPA does, right? Creating an environment of joy and inspiration, help us make performing arts community thrive and reach even more in the Des Moines area. Together we can build a vibrant artistic atmosphere. Donate today. So the other piece of this, not that Emily, you would do this, but you can actually schedule this onto social media. It will give you hashtags, recommended hashtags to use based upon kind of prolific ones that are based on the content. You upload a picture of some kid, schedule it onto social media. Again, not your specific scenario because you don't do the social media piece, but you could do this for a different type of organization if you wanted to do it. For most of you, what you might want to do is to say invitation to upcoming gala. You would want to, of course, put in more data, more information about your gala, what it's doing, because this is not going to be specific at all, right? It doesn't have anything relating to the cause, but if you put in stuff around the cause, it has that, and of course you can schedule it to the different platforms. I just have these 4. I don't even use Instagram, but I have these 4 for the nonprofit operating system. You can decide whether or not you know, whatever platforms you want. So for you, if you are in charge of also social media, you can see here I've scheduled out for nonprofit operating system different posts, and basically I've done, what I do is I take news in AI that might relate to nonprofits. I have the AI create the post, and then I schedule it right here. It's all laid out, and so you can see, like if we go to Twitter, this is what this looks like. And so it's already done for you. You can actually respond to, there's a text generation and respond to tweets. So if you have another organization or someone that responds to your social media post, it can create that reply if you'd like it to. But you can see here, I very quickly have weeks worth of data that's posted well in advance. So and then Ephraim, when I was talking to him about this, actually suggested, oh, it's on this page, suggested a pause all scheduled posts. So if something happens in your community or in your organization, you're like, we can't post today, you toggle this on and it will stop automatically posting until you change that. And then you can very easily move stuff around. So if, let's say, I don't want this to go out at 12:15, I can change this time to a different time. I'm going to change it back because whatever. But you can also move stuff. So let's say you don't want this post to go here, you want it to go there, just drag and drop and it's done. So I'm going to move that back just for the sake of that. So wanted to quickly, if there's anything that you see here on the text generation side that you're like, hey, let me know what that's about, feel free to enter that in the chat. If you are, so a lot of this is done for you content. So if you're writing an advocacy appeal, we want someone, we want our constituency to get engaged around public education, which is happening in Iowa right now. It's terrible. So you want them to call their representatives and advocate for funding public schools. Punch that in with advocacy appeals. There are a bunch of appeal ones because I had a lot of clients who were dealing with things like, for example, an emergency appeal. I had a client who the water main broke and that was flooded. And so you just type in like, basically, what's the emergency and you know, broken furnace or a flood. And rather than having to write an emergency appeal as the emergency is happening and think about that, you can focus on the contractors and have the emergency appeal written for you, edit it for 5 seconds and then send it out. If you're like a copywriter and you love copy and you're like, I think I'm good at this stuff, but you want to make it more accessible to different audiences, you can click on Content Improver. And so I wrote this blog post around legacy giving culture. So I'm going to take this first paragraph around, so this will go up on my website later, but if I didn't necessarily love this content and I wanted to improve it, make it simpler, it'll rewrite this to a 5th grade reading level. So you could take your existing copy on newsletters or print or whatever, make it even easier for people to read. It will essentially shorten sentences. So this looks great. Right approach and strategy, establish long-term sustainable sources of funding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. Oh, I just hit that button. I think so, right? Yep. And then I am just going to take this and go whoop, paste. And now this is ready to go. So it is actually a little bit longer, but it's, you know, it didn't use words like daunting, which is what I had in the first place. Now, AI had written the first copy, but hadn't optimized it for content. So if you don't want your copy written for you, there's a few copywriting models like the AIDA or the PAS copywriting model. So you could type something and it will give you a framework for writing that yourself. So those are kind of the key things that are helpful from that perspective. I wanted to highlight some things that are not like fundraising related, because ultimately, this will be a tool that you can use in a lot of different ways. What are some frequently asked questions that your donors might have about, or your stakeholders might have about, let's see who else is, what are some other organizations that we have here? Supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Thank you, Audrey. We will do this. Oh, son of a gun. Questions that people have about intellectual and developmental disabilities. So I'm just going to do that. Audrey, you could fill it out, even further. But Q&A is one of the things that, well, you don't necessarily think about this. People end up on your website a lot because they don't know what they don't know. So they're looking for what are the questions or answers that they're not necessarily just looking for the answers. They're also looking for the questions. So this is, what's an intellectual disability? What are some common causes? What are the signs and symptoms? What services are available, right? So these are things that you could share on your website. You could share this in a newsletter, other things like that. The other piece that's helpful, if you don't know what to do, how do we raise money for, what else do we have? A safety net clinic, oopsies, I can spell, serving Kansas City. You need, I'm not that you do, of course, Anne, but if you did, you needed some fundraising or programming ideas. Here are some ideas. I've even gotten it to write a day-by-day marketing plan for my friend at Make-A-Wish, and it says, do these things and in this order, and it's super helpful. So some of these things you've obviously already done, like develop an online donation portal for the safety net clinic, launch an email campaign, can do that. Pretty straightforward, but you get the idea. And the more specific you are, the better it will be. And then you can actually take each of those ideas back into some of these other models to flesh it out. But let's say, for example, you wanted to do interview questions for, I don't know, a major gift officer at a organization that helps with
For the performing arts. Do it.
I'm gonna do your other one. Homeless women.
He already hired me.
And
Okay,
I
that's
promise,
a good
Emily,
point, Emily.
I did not have or use this tool for those interview questions, but you got hired anyway, so it all worked out. Here's the thing, though. A lot of people, they're like, what? And honestly, one of our colleagues at the organization said, what are some questions? She was on the board of another organization. She said, what are some questions we should ask the development officer? And I was like, yeah, I can come up with stuff. But this is a good starting point for some of those questions. But let's say, for example, you don't have a development director, but you want to hire a development director. Let's do so for development director, sometimes it doesn't necessarily realize that it's a fundraising development director versus a business development director. So I'm going to do, we're going to do a major gift officer for a nonprofit arts organization. And Emily, you can see if this is your job qualifications and whatnot. And so you could take this and very quickly then post for a job. One of the next phases of the platform will be a way in which you can accept those applications. The algorithm will then sort the data for you and create the questions for the candidates based upon their resume and their cover letter. And it will eventually get through all of onboarding for you. So here's your job description. Reports the executive director, not exactly, but sure. Secure gifts of $5,000 or more, research process, pretty good, right? We didn't use I don't work there anymore, but not Microsoft Office, but you get the idea, right? Like this is 10, 15 seconds of work. And now you can go in here, edit, go from there, right? So if, if Emily was hiring for the assistant to the major gift officer office style, it would create something for her that she could deploy very quickly and then run through AI or run through her HR department and figure out all of that. So you get the idea there. There's lots of different opportunities for other prompts. I've gotten a few other suggestions that are out there. So yeah, there we go. This you want I'll send this to you because you definitely want this, right? So the major gift officer can focus on fundraising and donor relations. There we go. This is good. This is good stuff. Event management a plus. Yeah, this is exciting. So anyway, the other one that was requested was planned giving appeal. So let's say, for example, you are, do we have any other, are there any other organizations that I didn't do in here? Using something like this to sandwich around the client story. Yeah, if you have the client story, you could definitely do that. But you could also craft a client story if you wanted to do that. Let's see here. Oh, Audrey, we'll get to video in a second. Let me do planned giving for a second. And since I think I got all the different types of organizations, I'm just going to do Red Cross. And so maybe let's just do bequest. Okay. So most people need to do bequests on their website or have that content for an appeal or something like that. So the idea of this is that you don't need to know how to deal with a bequest or any even like more complicated giving tool. So this one's really straightforward, right? So if you know someone who's probably over the age of 60 or 70 in your file, has been giving to you 5 or more years in a row, you want to send them out a planned giving appeal, you could do that. What I would suggest to you is if you wanted to write long form content for a newsletter or for your website, you do that through the blog writing piece, and it will recognize, type in a little bit more detail, but your organization, what it does, and bequest. So consider a planned giving strategy by using a bequest. By making a planned gift, you'll make a long lasting contribution to help support those in need in perpetuity, blah, 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 blah. Now, what if maybe you know what a charitable gift annuity is? Charitable gift annuity. Annuity, I can spell. It actually doesn't matter because it'll correct the spelling for you. So, so with the recent change here in the US that made it more tax advantageous to give through a charitable gift annuity in this year, one of the things that's been highly requested was this planned giving tool to talk to donors about charitable gift annuities. So this is the key. It tells you what the charitable gift annuity does, or tells your donor, right? Double check for sure to make sure that it's not totally wrong, but it shouldn't be. But obviously all of these are first draft tools, not final draft tools. I said that before, I'll keep saying that again. It's very important that you edit this, you include your brand elements and whatnot, and write in your tone and double check the language. But the idea is that it says, it's invested in, I wouldn't say a trust fund because that's actually a different, that convolutes something. I would say it's invested in a fund. Returns from it used to benefit the Red Cross. Your gift will continue to help those in need long into the future. You can, of course, ask it to do more detailed stuff. So actually, when I shared this with the Red Cross, we did a charitable remainder unit trust. So there are charitable remainder annuity trusts and charitable remainder unit trust and annuity trust. And most people don't know the difference and don't need to know the difference because they're like, whatever. Oh, it's not really relevant to my life because it's less than 1% of all giving. But here's the explanation. Like, you transfer appreciated securities or other assets into a trust. Those assets will be sold, invested to generate income for you. When the trust ends, the remainder of that trust will be left to the charity of your choice, in this case, the International Red Cross, right? So that is actually the explanation of what a unit trust is and how it functions, which is different from a annuity trust. So, so that's fun. Now, Audrey, let's get to video. I love video ideas. So this is where the rubber meets the road in terms of generating multiple ideas. But say, for example, Audrey, you work for an organization that supports people with intellectual disabilities. So we're just going to type in, and of course you can get more specific, supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So the more specific you get, Audrey, when you try this out, the better the video script is going to be. But what I would say, so it's actually going to give you a video script. It's going to give you shot by shot. If you have someone who can help you craft the video, I've actually used this for an after school program where we've asked the prompt to create a video script for a board member. I don't know why that, did I type in anything wrong there? I don't know. So, oopsies. So you could actually create a video script for your board members to do. An organization supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So what we find that is really fun is taking some of those old other tools that I talked about, like Descript, or even just your phone, sending the script to board members or volunteers, having them record that video. And if you want to get more complicated, this will do it for you. But the idea is that it, like storyboard, 2 people with intellectual and developmental disabilities sitting in a job interview, blah, blah, blah. You can, so this one actually created more of the storyboard. We can have this create a narrator script for an organization. And now it'll create more of a narrated script for that. But sometimes it'll come up with the narration in addition to the storyboard, and you just pluck out the storyboard stuff. But voiceover is what that's labeled as. Focus on the people, resources, and programs available to those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So you just, our services support people in their everyday lives. Our recreational programs provide an opportunity for special individuals to engage in the world. We provide nutritious meals and snacks. So now you've got a starting point, play that out. And here's some more script at the end as well. So it's a good starting point to come up with a script and then feed that in. The other kind of similar thing, oopsies, is the pitch deck. So if you were writing a major gift proposal, for example, and you wanted to pitch a particular project that's, a education center to make the arts more accessible to the community. So this is going to give you an outline with a little bit of explanation on how to build that major gift proposal. So you would put this into your branded template or whatever and fill out the details. You could take some of this content, some of the suggestions, put it into that long form content and say, all right, introduce the nonprofit and its purpose, provide a summary of the center's initiatives, highlight the experience, dedicated faculty staff, summarize the center's art curriculum. So you could take this stuff, put it into long form, add some details, and now you're working through this. And within quite literally a few minutes, you've got like a full-on 9-page thing that's I don't know that you would use a 9-page proposal, but you get the idea. So as always, if you have other suggestions or things you're like, oh, could it do this? The answer is always yes. The answer is yes, it could absolutely do some of those things. Monthly giving has been a big thing that people have asked about. So it talks about why monthly giving is very important. Let me know again if there's something here that you're like, oh, I want to know what that looks like. But
Cherian?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you're going to do creative story? I was going to ask you to do a different one, but it doesn't matter.
What do you want? What do you want?
I wanted to see monthly giving for a specific, put in monthly giving, and then I want you to show them the upvote and the downvote. The two
sure.
thumbs.
Yeah,
and what those are used for. So here, put in provide clothing for homeless women.
There, I already noticed there's a missing field here that must have gotten screwed up, but it shouldn't change the output unless it runs a full error. But that was another.
You could do. Then you could do a fundraising appeal. I wanted to specifically look at those two.
It'll do it. It's just there's a missing piece here that I needed to fix for monthly giving. So there you go. Women like Sarah, your generous donations, monthly sustaining donations are particularly helpful to our organization that provide us with a reliable stream of income, helps us to plan for the long term. Every bit counts, your contributions can make a huge difference. There's some pieces of this language, like I'm writing to you on behalf of a nonprofit. I would never do that, right? But yeah, Emily's, call me later. So this is where you would edit it, or you would get additional help in, how to craft this, how to put these pieces together, right? So you would want to do monthly giving at a particular time, and then follow that up with some social media ads, maybe around, or social media posts around, a story of Sarah. So let's take Sarah's
Hold
story.
on, Cherian,
Yeah.
before you go to that, copy and paste, but can you read what's on the bottom? Do you like this response?
Oh yeah.
I
So
want people to see that part.
yeah. So as I mentioned before, the difference between this and quite literally every other AI tool out there is that it is learning only from you. So when you put the thumbs up button on this, it marks that as something that you liked. Also, when you edit it and you say, I don't like this, and then you save it, it does that automatically. It assumes that when you make an edit, it learns that. And so then on the back end, it improves the product for you moving forward, so that every time you can put in what that looks like. So Chava, that's the next thing that I'm working on, is that specific to your brand piece. So what I just mentioned is how it learns moving forward, but what I'd love to do is get to the point, and it should be possible for it to do those things. It's just quite a bit of coding to be able to put that in place, and cost that's involved. So I wanted to keep costs as low as possible, especially at the outset. So those types of things are not available yet, but they should be available at some point in the future. So look forward to that for sure. Yes, it can do differently for an audience. So let's do this in
just add an extra U in every other word, and you have a European audience language. It's all good.
So you should be able to just write this in German. Is German okay, or do you want some other language? At least German, I can kind of sort of tell if I know what it's coming up with, because I can recognize a few words. I did it in Haitian Creole, and I know not a word of Haitian Creole. Does somebody know German? Because otherwise, this is really foolish. So it wrote it in German. You can. I've done this. I did this demo for a platform, and some of the people were Spanish speaking, and so I did write in Spanish, and I was like, I don't know a lick of Spanish, so somebody's got to tell me. And they read it, and they're like, yeah, it's pretty good. You would, anytime you're writing in a different language, you're gonna want it to have you're going to have somebody who knows the language proofread it. Otherwise, you're going to have a Chinese Pepsi brings your ancestors from the dead scenario here. But where I see this really valuable is for non-native English speakers to be able to write in grammatically English more grammatically proper, or develop content that's more applicable to English speaking users. If you're a native English speaking entity, and yeah, I noticed that too. If you're a native English speaking entity and you're trying to do this in translate your stuff to Spanish, you're going to need somebody who speaks Spanish to proofread stuff for sure. I would never ship this without knowing so now it's Veronica.
Cherian?
Yes, sir.
No, so here's a different question. What if I kept it in English, but I've got a US audience and a UK audience? So in the UK audience, forget all the extra U's. I'm talking that some of the words, pants mean something different in the US than they do in the UK, for example. So can it write something in English, but for a UK audience? That's the question.
I think it's going to be hit or miss, honestly. We can try it. Again, the value of this, unlike some of these other platforms, I'm trying to see if it includes a U in favor or something like that. I can't see any distinction here, just spot checking. So I don't know. I did for the Fundraising Everywhere team, I did have it right in Gaelic, and it did. Half those people don't even though they're from Ireland, they don't know how to speak Gaelic. But they were like, yeah, it looks right. Like, so it doesn't look like there's anything here. Complete wardrobe of clothing is probably not something I would say in English, but American English, but I don't know.
But if I was editing this, so if I took this as a first copy and then I edited it to be more UK friendly, would the AI system then start learning that when I prompt it as UK English, the more I do that, the more it's going to switch up the language over time?
Yes, over time. So for example, if you correct organization to the UK spelling like this, will it learn immediately? No, it's going to need some inputs to learn that over time. So it's something that I wouldn't say like you would be able to do that quickly and immediately, but absolutely, as it learns over time, it would be able to do that. So yeah, that's that. Any other questions? I know we're over time, but I do want to make sure that here's the thing. You have access to this thing for free for a month. And so like, as I'm closing up here, feel free to go jam it out, try it, stress test it. There may be, I've noted a few of these like little errors, and I'll try and figure out what those things are. But if something happens, just rerun it. There never will be any limits on it. I don't want to get to a point where nonprofits are like, oh, I only have certain number of words that I can produce this month, and then it restarts. I want you to be able to run 100 of these and put them together and figure it out and go from there. The other thing that I wanted to share with you is that if you like the system, of course, you can get more free months by referring others to the platform. They'll get a free month and you can get a free month as well. If you saw this up at the top, you can join the affiliate program. But if you wanted to share it with a lot of people, you can get cash for your nonprofit up to $1,000 if you would like to do that. So don't forget, your promo code is 1832comms to be able to do that. Feel free to email me at hello@nonprofitoperating-system.com. I look and respond to every single email. One of the big features that will come out very soon is a tool to be able to schedule, to reply to and schedule donor emails. So this is an email that I got earlier today. This tool is already available. So let's say you wanted to respond to this landscaping thing. There's a Chrome extension called Nonprofit Operating System. All it does right now is create an AI response and schedule a meeting. So it's only designed, and it's totally free. You can use that forever for free. So it creates this content. It responds to the stuff, but it says, would love to discuss the landscaping project, provide, this is thinking that I'm writing the quote. It's copied to the clipboard. So I hit reply and I hit paste. And then I would say, I would just like to discuss a landscaping project and get a quote. And the paid version that will come alongside the subscription will have different prompts and the ability to customize prompts in your email. So it only works in Chrome right now. We're working on some other ways to do that. But if you are looking at ways to respond to, basically a lot of the emails that I send to Ephraim, I start with the AI and then I customize it. And it honestly saves me like an hour a day responding to email. So hopefully that's helpful. Is there a learning curve?
Cherian, you have a question from Mary in the chat.
I was just gonna say, is there a learning curve? Honestly, I don't think so. I mean, if you just keep jamming things in here and seeing, what it looks like, you can type anything and produce stuff. I think right now where people are seeing the easiest kind of lift is around these appeals. So those are the easiest things to do. And then some of the like long form content writing are really super easy to do. Some of the other ones, like as we looked at video ideas and video scripts, it might take a little bit of work to get it to be exactly what you want it to do. But again, you can run it a dozen times and copy paste and cobble things together as you might need. Ultimately, it will save you a bunch of time rather than like, how do I start a video script? Honestly, I don't know. personally. I'm like, I have no clue. And I feel that same way around emails. I'm like, I would start by writing this email and what do I do and whatnot. So that's the idea. But I would love your feedback if there's things that you run into, if there are things that you're like, oh, hey, can it do this thing? It'd be really valuable for our team if we did this other, if it could do that, let me know. And the content engine is the first piece. We're moving in quickly into other pieces. As I mentioned, the HR kind of job piece is one of the phases moving forward, but there's some other pieces around data modeling, and financial forecasting and those types of things. So cool stuff.
So first of all, I'm going to say thank you very much to Cherian. I'm stopping the recording now.